Welcome to North Country Politics. I'm Representative Mike Willett. This is Representative Arnold Davis. He's from Milan. I'm from Colebrook. This is episode 5, the first week in March of 2026.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back, Mike. I caught your podcast last week with the interview with the lady from the charter schools, and I was very impressed. It was a good topic, good interview, very good.
She's a very dynamic young lady, and very pleasure to be around. She did a great job, and it was definitely the guest was the highlight, not the host.
Well, there's something I'd like to talk to you about, something that's happening locally. There's a petition going around to several North Country towns to create sanctuary cities up here, or sanctuary towns. And I just think that people should start thinking that through. There's a chance where they'd lose all their state funding. Because of Kelly Ayotte, she signed a bill that we passed this year, forbidding any sanctuary towns in the state. And what's your thought on that, Mike?
Well, a lot of towns throughout the country, they have what they call home rule, that the local government is the top government body that can control what's going on. New Hampshire is not a home rule state. And I agree with you 100%. I think that if the petitions go out on warrant articles for town meeting and they're passed and the town takes it seriously, they are at risk of losing their school funding. They're at risk of losing all their state aid, their highway aid, the return from the rooms and meals tax. And we all have a problem when we talk about our property taxes. If you think your town's property taxes are high now, wait.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's consequences to what's going on.
So be cautious. Be cautious with these warrant articles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This week I attended the Colebrook School meeting, and I've talked to some of the other towns around, and there's a common theme that I'm hearing. One thing is that open enrollment is really a hot potato right now, and I don't quite understand why. But I don't know if it's from the state teachers union or school unions, but they're all doing the same thing, saying we will take one student in, but we will not let any of our students leave. And if you don't know, open enrollment is any child, you can take your child and go to any school in the district and do it just automatically. The parents get to choose where they want to take the kids to school.
I see this as an opportunity, Mike. I think it's a very good financial opportunity for the towns to pick up some extra students at no extra cost and relieve some of the tax burden.
Well, I kind of thought the same thing. They're looking at it. Oh, we're going to lose the students. And I asked myself, what makes you think that? And I look at some of our schools, like there's about 40 homeschool kids in Colebrook. We have 120 kids. About 200 kids from preschool or kindergarten up to graduation. We got about 200 kids. We got 40 kids that are homeschooled, plus the kids going to the charter school. And I really think until the schools start asking the question, how can we track these kids back? And why are these kids leaving us? I said, if they can answer that question, I think it's going to take care of a lot of their financial problems.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we all know we have a record number of homeschoolers, a record number of charter schoolers.
And I homeschool my youngest daughter. And anybody says homeschooling is one of the most awful things there is, because it's a tremendous tax on the parents to be able to make sure the kids are doing their studies and doing everything right. And nobody's doing it because they want to do it, because they think it's fun. It's a lot of work and a lot of commitment.
So what could the schools do to attract kids back to them?
I think there's some things that they have to do. I think Katie Petnell, one of our representatives from Wolfboro, she's got a bill coming up. I think it's really excellent. And it's going to take our public schools and make them public charter schools. And that's going to get rid of a lot of the state and federal mandates, because they run on a different set of rules. And I really think it's going to take the school controls back to our local towns. And the schools in our local towns will be able to control their classes, how they do things. and get rid of some of the mandates that you got to teach this, you got to have this ed, you got to take care of this special ed kid, you got to do this. It's going to get rid of a lot of that and put the control back where you are. And I really think, and in my opinion, I really think it's going to help to get our testing scores back up.
Well, we all know that's a problem, is our proficiency ratings.
We heard last week, and it's crazy, in the city of Manchester, both math and reading, English, the proficiency rating on both is 19%.
I know, yeah.
I mean, how these guys get into college? How they getting a job? How they going to run a business if they can't read and they can't add? And it's part of the attitude, I think. We both heard a representative 2 years ago from Berlin get on the House floor and say, hey, teaching times tables is too difficult. We can't teach that in school anymore. And we can't teach cursive writing. It's way too difficult. And, I know I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but, geez, I could figure it out.
Yeah.
So, I think that's just a cop-out. I really do.
Yeah.
Another thing I saw at the school budget hearings where there's always extra money in the budgets. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing because they have to have it in case you have a family comes in with a couple kids and you have a couple special need kids or they need special education. So you have to have some money in there to take care of it. Because the town runs out of money. We can go get a loan, what they call it a TAN loan, which is tax anticipation note. Schools can't do that. Because I checked. I thought it would be possible to keep the budgets tighter, and they can't. So they have the extra money. And like last year in Colebrook, they turned back $1.2 million out of an $8 million budget. That's 15%. I mean, that's not a budget. That's a wish list.
Yeah.
And this year, they cut the state cut our funding, and what they end up doing was they cut that surplus to about $700,000. And someone made a motion at the school meeting to cut it $300,000, so you'd have just a $400,000 surplus. And the superintendent came unglued, saying, if you do that, we're going to have to lay off this many people. We're going to have to cut this sport. We're going to have to stop this. We're going to have to do this. And a citizen came up and said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of every time we talk about cutting the budget, you use these scare tactics. You turn back $1.2 million and you say, we can't cut $300,000 out? He says,
yeah.
It's reprehensible, it's not honest, and stop it. Stop with scare tactics. And kudos to him for doing that.
Yep.
One thing that we've talked a little bit about, Arnie, and nobody's talking about it, and I think it's a great idea, but and maybe I'm missing something. What do you think about SAU consolidation?
Well, here in Coos County, we have approximately 3,500 kids. We've got 5 SAUs. We're a little bit top heavy. And I think everybody's complaining about their property taxes. This is one excellent way to bring that down. I see it as mostly administrative costs, just to consolidate it. Manchester has, I believe it's 15,000 kids in their school system, and they have one SAU. I know we're geographically spread out a little bit, but I think we could manage.
What's a little bit interesting about that is that with the consolidation, like you said, we could have one, and what we've seen is the amount of cost for administration has gone exponentially higher than what the cost for teachers is.
Right.
And I know we're picking on the schools a little bit, but I'll tell you something. Colebrook is a very interesting place with their teachers, and they've done something. And I'm super happy the way they've done it, and I'm very proud of the focus they've taken. Because up in the North Country, it's like any professional, it's hard to get them to come here. But Colebrook has really taken a stance that we're going to try to bring back our own local kids. And I would say the biggest majority of teachers we have in Colebrook are kids that grew up there.
Really?
And it gives stability to the school because they're there, they care, they know the people's families, and they're there to stay. They're there not because they have a job or because they're looking for a job or looking for experience. They're there because they want to be. And I really, really think in Colebrook that's a great, great benefit that we have.
Mike, I want to touch on something you mentioned a minute ago was picking on the school systems. I don't see this as picking on them. We know the proficiency ratings are low. We know the costs are high. We're just kind of, nobody seems to be looking for solutions. We all know there's a problem. They want to throw more money on it. I mean, we've got to start somewhere to try to find a solution here.
And I think that, after our school meeting in Colebrook the other day, I saw some postings online. Well, we've got to get a hold of our state reps. Concord's got to give us more money. Concord's got to give us more money. Well, we've got to remember a couple things. We run a pretty tight budget in Concord. The biggest line item in the whole state of New Hampshire budget is health and human services, Medicare, people with needs.
Yeah.
And so, first thing you say is, well, they've got the biggest budget, let's take some. Well, we can't compromise our most vulnerable citizens.
That's right.
So we can't take it from there. The other thing I think in Concord is we haven't seen the schools overall really take an aggressive approach to try to cut money, try to get more efficient, try to attract these students back. We haven't seen that. And I think there's a sentiment in the House saying, until we see the schools put their best foot forward, just stop asking for money, but really show that you want to solve the problem, the legislation is not going to help.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's arguing the fact that we all know that our school systems, our public school systems, are our cornerstones of our communities and very important to every one of us.
Absolutely. And I would love to see all of our homeschool kids and charter school kids that are getting away from schools back in our schools.
That's
because,
right.
I mean, that's our community. That's our
goal, but to do it economically.
Yes. Talking about the education, an interesting thing came out this week, and I just find it so hypocritical because Andrew Valinsky is a man, he's a former governor's councilman, and he's running for governor. And he came up with a proposal he called his 3+3. And what it was he wanted a 3% income tax and then add a $3 per thousand property tax to everybody in the state, and use that to fund education. And from that side of the aisle, it sounded good. But what I found interesting was the same day that he brought out that proposal, and he's a Democrat, but he's a very intelligent guy, and he's been around. He's a really smart guy. So the day he brings that out, Alexis Simpson, who's the House Minority Leader, head of the Democrats in the House of the state of New Hampshire, comes out and says, "We will never support an income tax." Wow! I said, "Oh, great! We're on the same page. Maybe we do something." So the next day, we're in the House session yesterday, and there's something on a bill coming up floor. It's CACR 10, and that was
The constitutional amendment to forbid income tax.
Yeah, it would prohibit income tax in the state of New Hampshire. I said, this is going to fly through. Alexis Simpson, the head of the Democrats, said, we will not have an income tax. And it was very plain. It wasn't a complicated bill. It's very plain spoken and very plain worded. And it's pretty direct. Well, there were yesterday 161 Democrats in the House at the session. And son of a gun, 158 voted against it,
Yeah.
including Alexis Simpson.
Yep.
So, which side of the mouth are you talking out of? You say, we'll never have an income tax, and then you won't vote to prohibit it. The hypocrisy is overwhelming on that.
Well, there was even one member from that side of the aisle that came up after and spoke and said, "I never said I wouldn't vote for an income tax."
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. After Valinsky's proposal, I said, we know our property taxes are high, and I mean, they're high. And I said, well, if you look at overall tax burden, how does New Hampshire rate with the rest of the states in the country? So I did a little research, and I said, okay, let's look at overall tax burden on people. So we talked about property tax, sales tax, income tax, excise tax, and how is it done? And as much as we say we have our high property taxes, which we do, and
Yep.
no question, but in overall tax burden, New Hampshire is second lowest to Alaska.
Yep.
So-
Live free or die.
Yeah. So if we can get our property taxes, and I think that when we hear the governor talk, and she always talks about the New Hampshire advantage, I think that's part of it. That's
She's
part
right.
of the New Hampshire
Yeah.
advantage.
Yep.
One other bill that we're going to coming up this week is HB 1704. We're very pleased tonight to have Representative Brian Labrie from Bedford to speak a little bit about his bill coming up this next week in the House of Representatives, HB 1704. Good evening, Brian, and tell us a little bit about your bill.
Good evening, Mike. Thank you for having me on here tonight. Well, yeah, like you said, 1704 came out of committee a few weeks ago, and of course the House has been pretty busy. So I did notice that this week it is on. Now I'm not sure if that's going to go on Wednesday or Thursday, but I'm sure it'll be one of the two. And basically, what this does is, this modernizes the public sector, and it allows, our public employees to have some freedom of choice in terms of how they want to work for the public sector. And right now, it's basically the union negotiates under collective bargaining for both those that are part of the union and not part of the union. And what we wanted to do here is, in an effort to try to recruit and retain more valuable players, if that's a good way to put it, we have to get into 2026 and we have to give these folks more options. And one of those things is going to be allowing the public employee to negotiate directly with the public employer. And that's what really 1704 is all about.
If you don't mind, just to clarify, can you give me a couple real world examples how this would work?
Yeah, so basically, I'll use the DOT just because it's an easy one to pick on because of the snow we've had nonstop around here. If the DOT, William Cass just retired on February 27th. Wonderful guy. He was the commissioner for DOT. And, historically, they had been searching for snowplow drivers and operators. And it got to the point where Commissioner Cass would have to send letters to former Governor Sununu and council members requesting, more funds and more lateral movement in an effort to try to hire these snowplow operators. And it actually got to the point where they were doling out $5,000 bonuses just to attract drivers. So what this would do is this would allow the Department of Transportation as the public employer to better negotiate with anybody who would come their way. And it wouldn't be, any time of the year. It would be when collective bargaining happened or if it was a new hire. But basically, it would allow them to become more competitive with private employers, which right now they're not. They're really behind the curve. And this would just be a really, really great way to allow our public employers to just keep up with the world.
Talking with some of the other reps in the House, we're hearing, well, this is an anti-union bill. What do you say?
Well, what I can tell you is, first of all, it's freedom of choice. Second of all, it's not a mandate in any capacity. It offers just another choice. So if you want to be part of the union and you like collective bargaining and you like what the union is doing for you, whether it's health benefits or pay or wages or whatever it is, stay with the union. And I would encourage people, if that's how you are and that's how you feel, stay with the union. And for those that want to do something different for themselves, then they're certainly welcome to go direct to that employer. And maybe I'll give you an example. Maybe that person's spouse that wants to go direct to the employer, maybe their spouse works for UPS or BAE Systems, and they don't need the health benefit, but they want maybe $5 more an hour. That allows them to get that money, waive the benefit, possibly help the taxpayer by having that money go back to the taxpayer that they don't use in that healthcare option. But what it does too is it allows the public employer to go out to the market and grab employees that all these private guys are grabbing.
Would this transfer over, Representative Davis and I, with our podcast tonight, we talked a lot about the schools and budgeting and stuff. Would this transfer over to the schools also?
Yeah, so this really is all public employees, Mike. This is all public employees with the exception of safety, just to qualify safety, fire, police, corrections, EMS. And, frankly, that world is a little bit different in that, it's a 24/7 life and death scenario. That's a strict chain of command over there. It's a rank-based system rather than like a tenure step system. So it's just a different world that the fire safety and those folks live in. And we decided that because that really shouldn't be monkeyed with in any capacity, not that this is monkeying, but it just shouldn't be amended, I don't believe. So we, followed what other states were doing, and other states have been carving that out. And when they propose these type of things, and I just felt that was the right thing to do with this. But yes, to answer your question, this will include teachers. This will include municipalities, state. And if I give you a fact real quick, the state of New Hampshire has about 13,200 state employees across all of the departments.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 13,000, 57% of it currently is not union. And it just speaks volumes. People, what it tells us is people want a choice. They do.
And I think sometimes that people forget how expensive, you mentioned the insurance benefit. And I think people sometimes forget how expensive it is. I remember dealing with a union in my local town and negotiating contracts. And at that time, the health benefit alone was $17 an hour. And this is quite a number of years ago. So, if you, like I said, if you could, the employees that wouldn't take that benefit, you would really save the taxpayers some money.
Yeah. And there's no way to gauge that, Mike. Who would take the benefit, who wouldn't take the benefit, who would go direct. The only indications that we truly have right now is you can look historically at the state. And right now, like I said, it's 50%, 7% that are not part of it. So one could only assume that may be a little bit linear, and you may see those type of numbers, kind of a 50% type of number. And I think the union has a really good place in this, and in that they have some loyal folks there. But here's one thing. By doing this and by passing this bill, it would allow the unions to now focus on the dues paying members, instead of carrying what they call under right to work on the private side. They used to call those they call them free riders. Well, that exists right now. The public sector right now, the way it's set up, is right to work.
Right.
It is. And this would actually get the union out of that jam, and would allow the union to focus on their dues paying members and let the other guys go. And frankly, I think they can coexist just fine, Mike. 92% or 91% of the world negotiates directly with their employer. So we're not breaking any ground here. This is nothing earth shattering or new. Yeah.
I talked to one of my school board members, and he wasn't opposed to it. He said it's a little more work to negotiate individually, but he thought they could have some positive effects. So it's an interesting concept, and you expect a big battle come this week?
I will tell you, it has absolutely been picking up momentum. I've got a ton of emails from folks that are so happy that they're actually going to get this. One of the first times this particular product, if you will, has been offered.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been the right to work product with the public sector. I'm sorry, with the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
But there hasn't been so much with the public guys. And I just feel like, really, if you boil this down, one of the biggest benefits, and I'll keep going back to it 1,000 times, you finally allow the public employer to compete with, private entities. We all harvest employees from the same pond. That we just do. It's a fact. And I say we, as I'm a small business owner.
Right.
We all pull, no matter whether it's a guy working for the state or a guy working for me or you. Everybody comes from the same pond, and who can be more competitive is the one that wins. And this now gives the keys to the castle to the state of New Hampshire and to the municipalities, and it lets them recruit A-plus teachers, awesome operators, and great municipal people. And we have never had that before. And now these folks can go out there and get that. And that's really amazing. And I'm proud of this legislation. I think this is going to be, listen, nothing's easy, nothing's free, and nothing's cheap, right? So this will have to be earned. I've tried to be as completely respectful as I could in building and crafting this legislation. There were a few things on our committee that the Democratic side had asked me to do, One of those was taking out fines and penalties for those that union members that may feel compelled to harass other members. I took that out because I didn't feel that, after listening to those guys and their argument about it, I agreed with them and felt that that wasn't a fair thing to do, even from a First Amendment perspective. So have I made everybody happy? No, of course not. But I really believe that this is what the state needs to move it into the 21st century.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for joining us tonight, Brian, and
You're
I
very
wish you
welcome.
could. I wish you good luck this week.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We'll see you around.
We'll see you. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Mike, I'd like to bring up a bill, kudos to Representative Mike Murphy out of Coos District 6. He met with the Grown family, and they proposed a Gold Star father and a Gold Star family license plate bill. And it was actually, it's much more than a license plate bill. It's about honoring and respecting and remembrance of the fallen family members. So that came out. It was very, very nice to see that bipartisan on a voice vote. And we had many Gold Star families up in the gallery, and including the Groans.
The Committee on Transportation, to which was referred House Bill 1078 FN, an act creating a Gold Star family and Gold Star father license plate. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to be passed. Representative Henry Guyson for the committee. Representative Arnold Davis is recognized to speak.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to stand before you, the body, and our Lord, to introduce House Bill 1078, known as the Gold Star Father and Gold Star Family License Plate Bill. This legislation represents far more than a license plate. It is a tribute to the families who share in the honor, remembrance, and profound sacrifice of their loved ones who gave their lives in service to our great nation. I would like to recognize the family of Staff Sergeant Tanner Groan, who are with us today in the gallery and whose advocacy helped set this bill in motion. I also would like to acknowledge the representative from Gorham, New Hampshire, the prime sponsor, who could not be here with us today, as well as the other Gold Star families joining us here this morning. I would be remiss not to mention the Gold Star father and representative of Specialist Justin Rollins as well. We owe you and all Gold Star families a debt of gratitude that cannot be measured. This bill has been a long time coming, and it is long overdue. House Bill 1078 emerged from the Transportation Committee with a unanimous bipartisan ought to pass recommendation. At this time, I respectfully urge all members to pass this bill with a voice vote to show our guests in the gallery just how much this bill means to us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The questions on the Majority Committee report are about to pass on House Bill 1078. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. The committee report's adopted. Please rise for a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in the service of this country.
It was really, that was probably will be one of my most memorable moments, being in the House, being in there and hearing how loud everybody voted to pass that. It was unanimous. I was very proud to be a part of that. And I'd like to thank Representative Murphy, who couldn't be here. I wish he could have been here tonight, but he missed the session. He was excused. But he did a lot of work to bring this forward, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I agree, Arnie. It was very, very emotional to see the families up there.
Yeah.
It really was.
It was a long time coming.
Yeah, and this bill's been proposed before, and like you said, kudos to Representative Murphy. He got it done.
That's right.
God bless him.
Amen.
Another bill came up this week. We mentioned it a little bit a while ago. Was the ferret bill?
Yeah.
They're being able to take your ferret hunting. Well, it went down in flames.
Yeah, so anybody proposing to take their ferret hunting, it's not happening anytime soon. I think they've taken all the little orange hats and vests off the market too.
I really thought I had a business in the making. So for this week, we had a couple bills.
What were you thinking? Were you thinking?
What were they thinking introducing these bills, or how the bills came out? And what was one for you, Arnie?
One for me came through my committee. It was a fourth grade class that did a beautiful presentation. They came in, they wanted to pick a state lake. We have a state tree, we have a state animal, a state actually insect. Well, they wanted to have a state lake. And they picked Winnipesaukee. And so this fourth grade class did the research. It's our largest lake. It's our, it brings in the most money. It brings in the most tourism. It's central located. I actually thought it was a good choice. And it didn't pass. It went ITL yesterday.
I thought the same thing. The kids did a fantastic job and really did a lot of work. And, I'm not a lake region guy, but, Winnipesaukee, that's the one you see on the map.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's the one that everybody talks about. And it failed. And I just thought to myself, what are they thinking?
Yep. What were they thinking? I'm going to throw that one right in here. I love that sound, Mike. We had another one, Mike. House Bill 1048, the brass knuckle bill. We all know New Hampshire is you can conceal carry. It's constitutional, but you can't have brass knuckles. So
Yeah, it's and this bill has passed the House 5 terms in a row, and it gets killed in the Senate. And you say, well, geez, brass knuckles are dangerous, and they call these things they call slung shots, and it's
blackjacks.
yeah. And the thing is, yes, they're dangerous, but you know what? This is a concealed carry state, and that little piece of lead is going to do a lot more damage than a set of brass knuckles.
That's right.
And I'm thinking, why aren't we just getting,
Say no more.
go through it? What are they thinking?
Yeah.
So as we conclude this week, we want to add something to our program, and it's a question of the week, and we'd like to get some feedback from our constituents and our friends out there. And a bill that's coming up in the next few weeks, and I don't know the bill number yet, but what it basically is, it's for people who are on SNAP, who are getting food stamps and food aid and stuff like that, to prohibit the sale of candy and soft drinks. And what's your feeling on that, Aaron?
Boy, Mike, I see both sides of it. I see health issues, but I see also families with children, and it's a tough one. I really think I'd like to have the viewers' input. If you want to go on Facebook, give us your comments. Yeah.
And I've got some letters from some community leaders saying, how are you gonna enforce this? And I got a letter from a soft drink distributor saying, you know what, that's going to hurt our business. That's going to hurt your jobs in the North Country. And I'm with you. I'm kind of on the fence, because when we're giving people money, and I say that seriously, giving people money, people in need, and I have no problem with that.
That's right.
But I don't want it being wasted. And I don't know if that's wasting it or not. So give us your feedback on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think, and we'll tell you what our results are next week.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes our North Country politics for this week.
Well, glad to be back, Mike.
And we're glad to have you back. And so feel free to email us at the end of the show. We'll have our emails posted. If you have any questions, make sure you get a chance to look at 1704 with Brian Labrie and talk about that bill. Some people are proposing that as a anti-right to work bill or a right to work bill, and I don't see it that way. It's going to be very contentious in the House, and I think that's going to be a hot topic coming up this week.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us, and we hope to see you all next week.
Yeah. Good night.